Okay, so I want to introduce Niall Foster and Damien Kieran. Both of them are part of the Crosscare group who are going to make the presentation tonight. And hopefully people will find some useful information. We did one of these a couple of years ago, and it was very interesting. So I'll hand it over to Niall.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming along this evening. And thank you to Paul for hosting us this evening for the Return to Ireland webinar in partnership with Irish in France. So my name is Niall, as we've said, and I'm the Policy and Outreach Officer with Crosscare Irish Diaspora Support Project. I'm joined by my colleague Damien, and he's our Client and Casework Officer. Some of you may be in contact with him already, or you can certainly contact him following this webinar with any questions that you might have. We also have Lucia, who is our Communications Officer. She is running the show behind the scenes for us. And we also have our project leader, Sarah, in attendance as well. So just some housekeeping on our end. As you can see, we will be recording this evening's session so that you can go back if there's anything that you might have missed on tonight's webinar. So we would ask, if you would prefer not to be on camera, that you switch your cameras off now. We'd also ask that you mute your microphones just for the duration of the presentation, just so we don't get any background noise or anything like that. So you're all very welcome to put some questions into the chat box below. We will have a Q&A session at the end if there's any questions that you might have. So the agenda for this evening. So we'll begin with a short introduction into the Crosscare Irish Diaspora Support Project and what we do ourselves. Before Damien will go through some key areas such as PPS numbers, accommodation, healthcare and social welfare supports. I'll then take you through three key areas of return that we identified through our poll, and that was sent out to you, which we're really grateful that you filled out so we can tailor this session to your areas of interest. And then just a reminder that due to the administrative differences, our project actually deals with information and advocacy relating to the Republic of Ireland only. While there is no organisation at present that provides information on return to the North, we will do our best to signpost you to an organisation that can assist if you do need it. So, who we are. As you'll know by now, we are the Crosscare Irish Diaspora Support Project. We were formerly the Crosscare Migrant Project, but we had a rebrand probably over the last year or so, and now we're finally coming into our own. And we're a specialised service for the global Irish diaspora. So that's whether you're returning to Ireland or emigrating abroad. So we're actually funded by the Government of Ireland's Emigrant Support Programme. This is a programme that's unique to Ireland and supports Irish organisations across the world that assist the global Irish community. You'll see our contact details on the slide there, which includes our brand new website launched this week. The website is packed with great information on return, so I would recommend checking that out. And we will have some links in the slides, which we will be sharing with you after this, and that will lead you to that website as well. So what we do. We are a service that provides information to people both returning and emigrating from Ireland. And that also includes advocacy for those who may require it when trying to access things such as statutory services or their rights and entitlements, but may be experiencing difficulties. We have expertise in areas of housing, homelessness, and social welfare for those returning, but offer advice and information on a number of different areas. Now, where we do not have expertise in certain areas, we will always try to signpost you to the correct organisation that can offer those expertise. Our outreach work, which is the work that I do, is based on fostering partnerships with Irish organisations such as Irish in France across the world to better connect the Irish diaspora and also to make them aware of our services. We also work alongside the Department of Foreign Affairs Consular Service to provide assistance to Irish people abroad who may be returning in crisis situations and require our help on arrival. Our policy and research, which is another area that I work in, centers around identifying key trends and issues that arise for Irish citizens, both abroad, who are returning and leaving. And we look to promote solutions with key stakeholders and government departments on these issues. So through our communications piece, which, as I mentioned, is my colleague Lucia's area of expertise, we provide up-to-date online information and resources for people in the digital space. So Lucia does tremendous work in this area, and we would really appreciate if you do have Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook, that you can follow us on there and stay up to date. So I'm just going to pass you over to Damien now. Damien's going to talk you through some of the key areas of return that most people will have questions, or the areas that really kind of arise a lot for us and we have particular expertise in. So that would include PPS numbers, accommodation, healthcare, and social welfare. So I'll pass you over to Damien now, who will take you through all of those. I think you're on mute, Damien.
Merci Noel pour la présentation. Bonsoir à tous. So the first topic that I'm going to begin with is the PPS numbers, or the personal public service numbers. So as some of you may already be aware, the PPS number is a unique reference number that is required to access public services and social welfare benefits in Ireland. So, for example, you will need a PPS number to apply for a social welfare payment, or to apply or exchange a driving license, to register with revenue if you wanted to begin employment or access medical services, or register children for a school or college. So if you lived and worked in Ireland previously, there's a good chance that you already have a PPS number. So you could find it on previous payslips or any other official documents used in Ireland. So, and also, if you don't remember your PPS number, you could contact the Department of Social Protection's Client Identity Services, and they'll be able to help you out with that. So if you do not have a PPS number, you'll need to apply for one on your return. And in most cases, you can only apply for it from Ireland, except for a couple of exceptions. So, for example, if you're purchasing a property in Ireland from abroad, to be assigned a PPS number, you need to provide evidence of why you might need one. So this could be to access social welfare payments, or if you are entering into employment. You'll need to make it an appointment at your local PPS office to get one. And then also, if you do already have one, if you are returning to Ireland with your French spouse or partner, then they'll also need to apply one to be able to access services. And then also, if you're going to apply for a PPS number on behalf of your child, you'll need to fill out what's called a M form once you're back in Ireland, and you'll also need to provide evidence of the parent or guardian's identity, the child's identity, and also the reason for applying for a PPS number. So that's just a brief synopsis of that, and then moving on to accommodation. So if you are in a position to buy a home when you return to Ireland, it's important to be aware of the additional costs that are involved with this. So these can include legal fees, what your mortgage repayments, insurance, and stamp duties as well. So there's also certain supports that are available, mainly for first-time buyers, such as the first home scheme and the Help to Buy scheme. But then also, if you are looking to rent, we would also recommend that you begin your search prior to your return. So there's rental websites available, such as daft.ie, myhome.ie, rent.ie, amongst a few others. So yeah, as I said, regardless of if you're looking to either buy or rent, due to the current housing situation in Ireland, we would strongly recommend that you arrange accommodation prior to your return. And then also, dependent on your circumstances, there are also various supports available if you might need support with paying rent, such as the Housing Assistance Payment, or HAP, as it's more commonly known. So for most of these supports, you need to apply to your local authority and be placed on the waiting list for social housing. But it's also important to keep in mind that the waiting list for social housing can be extremely long. So keep this in mind if you're currently receiving housing supports or are living in social housing in France. So all of the above information that I just mentioned is hyperlinked on the slide. And then you can also get in contact with us or myself directly if you have any further questions regarding accommodation. So then moving along to healthcare, before returning or coming back to Ireland, it would be beneficial to obtain any medical records and prescriptions from France. So having a record of your medical history can help doctors and physicians over here in Ireland meet the healthcare needs, your healthcare needs. So you can ask your doctors or specialists or consultants in France for a copy of your file to be sent to you or to your planned healthcare provider in Ireland. You can also access certain public health services once you're ordinarily resident in Ireland, meaning that you've either been living in Ireland for at least 1 year or you intend to live in Ireland for at least 1 year and beyond. Depending on your income and age, you may also be eligible for a medical card or GP visit card. So the GP visit cards allow you to see a doctor in Ireland free of charge. Anyone can apply for a GP visit card, but it's subject to a means assessment. However, they are available to children under the age of 8 or people over the age of 70, regardless of income. And then, as some of you might know, the medical cards allow you to access a variety of health services free of charge. And to qualify for one, you would need to pass a means test in most cases. You may also be eligible for a medical card if you're receiving other benefits or if you may have a disability or collect a pension from France. If you require regular prescription medications, you can also apply for the drugs payment scheme to help with the cost of these. And then people with certain medical conditions can also avail of the long-term illness scheme and get some medications and medical appliances free of charge. So for more on these and other health supports available in Ireland, the link is in the right-hand corner of the current slide. And then moving along to private health insurance. So if this is an avenue you want to pursue when you return to Ireland, it would be advisable or beneficial to visit the Health Insurance Authority website because they have a comparison tool which is very useful, and it provides you with an independent overview of the features and benefits of regulated private health insurance policies and products that are currently available in Ireland. So if you use the tool, it is beneficial because it can help you make an informed decision on what the best option would be for you. And then moving along to social welfare. So before returning to Ireland, you should check to see if you are able to transfer any of the benefits that you're currently receiving in France. In some cases, with some payments, it's possible to continue receiving social welfare payment from France when you return. So you should contact your local welfare office or the body that pays you, and they'll be able to give you a bit more information on that. And then moving along to the payments themselves, there are 3 types of social welfare payments in Ireland. There's social insurance payments, which are based on your social insurance contributions. You may also be able to combine your social insurance contributions with those you've made in France to help you qualify for one of these payments, such as the contributory state pension. And then the second type of payment, it would be the social assistance payments. And for that, you'd be required to satisfy the habitual residence condition, or HRC. I'll go into that in further detail in a moment, but in most cases, you will also need to satisfy a means test. And types of payments that kind of are under the social assistance payments would be job seekers allowance, disability allowance, and then the non-contributory state pension. And then finally, there would be the third type of payment that you may be eligible for is the universal payments, which are not means tested, but then you would still need to satisfy the habitual residence condition to qualify for these. So the child benefits payment would be an example of one of the universal payments. And then you can also combine your social, as I mentioned previously, you can combine your social contributions made in Ireland and in France. So when calculating your entitlement to an Irish social insurance payment under EU regulations, all your reckonable contributions from countries covered by the regulations are combined. And this obviously includes contributions made in France. And then you'll also need just there's forms, there's a UI and the E104 prior to leaving France. And these forms are available at your local social security agency and provide details of your social insurance record in France. And just one last thing on the social welfare payments. There is no automatic entitlement to access social welfare payments in Ireland as an Irish citizen. To qualify, you will need to satisfy certain payment-related criteria, and it might either have enough social insurance contributions or satisfy the habitual residence condition and the means test as well in some cases. So just moving on to the habitual residence condition, or HRC as it is commonly known. To receive a social assistance payment, such as a job seekers allowance, you will need to show that Ireland is your main centre of residence as part of the HRC. So Irish citizens returning home from abroad can sometimes face challenges meeting these requirements, this requirement in particular. So, and then while the HRC is not explicitly defined in Irish law, it generally means that you have proven close ties with Ireland, you have been living in Ireland for some time, or that you intend to stay in Ireland for the foreseeable future. So then to satisfy the HRC, you would need to have the right to live in the Republic of Ireland and access social welfare services. And then also show that you are habitually a resident in the Republic of Ireland, which there are 5 main factors needed to satisfy to establish the HRC in Ireland. And they are the length and continuity of residence in Ireland, the length of and purpose of any absence from Ireland, the nature and pattern of your employment. You need to establish that Ireland is your main centre of interest and you don't plan on moving abroad anywhere else, and that your future intentions are to live in Ireland as it appears from the evidence. So while you don't have to be living in Ireland for a certain period of time to be considered habitually resident, you must show that your main centre of interest is now Ireland. So it's helpful to keep this in mind prior to your move and bring all supporting documents with you to help you with this, such as evidence of the sale of property or the closure of bank accounts. So further information on what documents are needed are available on our website, www.diasporasupport.ie. And we also would recommend that you would include a strong cover letter with your application detailing your circumstances as an Irish citizen returning from France. And then finally, from me for now, would be moving on to documentation. So one of the biggest obstacles that we encounter with clients who are making applications for social welfare payments is not having the required documentation. or having the documentation that are being asked of them of the Department of Social Protection. So it is very important to gather all relevant documents before your return, and then save electronic copies either in the cloud or in your email. You might also have official documents that may be in French that might save you some time to get them translated into English. So really having the required documentation can help to avoid delays in what can turn into be lengthy processing times. And also back to our website on www.diasporasupport.ie, you can download our Returning to Ireland documents checklist, which is a handy list of documents that you can have prepared and bring back with you regarding issues such as accommodation, finance, healthcare, and driving and insurance, to name a few. So this is where I'll hand you back to Niall, where he'll talk you through a couple of scenario-based issues that were identified from the poll, which Lucia asked you to take part in. So thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Damien. That's brilliant. And just as I said at the start, obviously this is an overview of the different subjects. So we will have the slides to share with everyone at the end, and that will include the links as well for further information on all of that. So I'm just going to talk through a few scenarios, as Damien said, that were identified through the poll that we sent out. And the first of those was returning to Ireland to retire. Obviously a big part of that is the pension. So the state pension in Ireland is available to those aged 66 and over. If you retire at 65, you may be eligible for a benefit payment for 1 year. And that's if you've made enough social insurance contributions in Ireland. The contributory pension. So the contributory pension is for those who have made qualifying social insurance contributions. So this is usually, I think it's around 10 years or so of work in Ireland. But there is a certain classes of contributions and a number of contributions that you have to satisfy in order to get that payment. And there is more details on a number of class contributions available on citizensinformation.ie, or you can contact us also for further information on these. There is the non-contributory pension then. So that's for people who may not have qualifying contributions for the contributory pension. With this payment, you would be subject to, as we discussed, the habitual residence condition, or HRC. You know, whether it's basically just for any non-contributory payments across the board, they would have the HRC would be applied. And there would also be the means test as well for that payment. And again, there is a lot of information around like the means test and how they apply that to your situation. So if you do have any questions on the details of the means assessment, please do get in touch with us, as we are obviously doing a brief overview of the payments and qualifying criteria today. The second thing then is housing supports for retired people. So as Damien discussed, obviously housing can be an area of concern for people, you know, and that's whether you can afford to buy, rent, or not. So, you know, we've addressed in the previous slide on accommodation that it is really important to plan and have accommodation organised before you return to Ireland. Now, I just got a little notification there that my internet was unstable, so I don't know if I froze there for a little bit, did I?
Just briefly, but it's fine now.
Okay.
Just a brief couple of seconds.
No worries. So yeah, as we've addressed in the previous slides, just really important to plan and have accommodation organised before you return to Ireland. And then for older people returning to Ireland requiring housing supports, so if you're coming home and you might need social housing supports, we do have a partner organisation here in Ireland, Safe Home, and they have a housing assistance scheme. So this is a scheme that's for qualifying Irish-born immigrants to help them explore secure housing options on their return. And if you'd like to get in touch with us and we can make an introduction, or you can check them out online at Safe Home Ireland, and the guys there are brilliant. They're really, really good. Looking at other kind of supports, so we have things like free travel pass for those aged 66 and over. So there's a number of other qualifying criteria if you're not 66, such as receiving disability allowance. But again, there's more information online about that. We have things like fuel allowance, so you need to be living alone and getting a qualifying payment, such as a pension. And then unless you're over 70, you don't need a qualifying payment for this. And that's also available to apply online as well. The living alone increase, then we have, if you're over 66 and living alone, you might be eligible for the living alone increase if you're receiving the state pension. And then with healthcare as well, so we obviously talked about in the previous section on healthcare and the GP visit cards. So I probably won't go into too much detail on that, as we've already covered it. But again, we have a section on our website for people retiring, and there's further information then on citizensinformation.ie. So the next scenario that we're going to look at is the French spouse of an Irish national. So obviously, as a French national, your spouse will hold the rights of an EU citizen to move and work freely within the EU. And that's regardless of relationship with an Irish citizen. Your spouse will have the right to work in the state, obviously without the requirement for a visa permission or work permit. But there are some things to know around access to state supports in Ireland that you should be aware of. So again, this thing of the habitual residence condition pops up. And obviously we've discussed it previously around social welfare. HRC is applied to the spouse of an Irish citizen as well as the Irish citizen themselves. So it doesn't really matter if of nationality. It's everyone will, for certain payments, will have to go through this process. If you're entering the state and you've not gained employment and require social welfare supports, you will have to satisfy the habitual residence condition test. So that's just around the fact that as an EU citizen, when you enter another EU state, you have a 3-month period where you have a right to reside. But in that 3-month period, rather, you need to activate your EU worker rights. So if you haven't found employment in that period of time and you need to access state supports, you will be subject to HRC. This also crops up as well. So just in relation to the child benefit payment. So the child benefit payment is obviously a universal payment for parents in Ireland. The mother in a relationship is the one that is required to make an application for child benefit, even if the father is an Irish national. So just bearing in mind that if you haven't activated your EU worker rights, you will need to satisfy HRC if you are applying for that payment as the mother of a child. And then obviously as the spouse of an Irish national with sufficient evidence that you are residing in Ireland for the foreseeable future. So as discussed, things like proof of renting, property ownership, these kind of documentation that can prove your habitual residence. Habitual residence is not something to worry about, but it is more of a formality that everyone needs to adhere to, regardless of nationality. So just to be aware of it, and again, obviously the documents that we discussed previously are very important to organise before coming to Ireland and when you get here, so that you can get through that as seamlessly as possible. The next thing is around voting rights. So as an EU national living in Ireland, you do actually have the right to vote in local elections. So this would be around, say, electing local councillors. And you also have the ability to vote in EU elections. So if you're voting in EU elections, and this is important, you will need to fill out a form EP1, which you can get online or from your local council. So this would only apply if you haven't already voted in a European election in Ireland. So if you voted in European elections in Ireland previously, you won't need to fill out this form. But if you haven't, and you'd like to continue to vote in European elections in Ireland, then you'll need to fill out that form. Your spouse will not have the right to vote in the general government elections, so electing TDs. They won't have the right to vote in presidential elections or referendums either. So these are reserved for Irish citizens only. But what you can do is you can continue to cast your vote in French elections. So when you come to Ireland, you can contact the French embassy for more information on that and continue to vote while you're in Ireland. So we're just going to have a look now at returning to Ireland with children. One of the big things people have concern about, obviously, when they move anywhere is finding a school for their children. And the thing that we always say to people is make sure that you search for schools and make contact with them prior to arriving in Ireland. Finding a school that has availability of places can be difficult. So this is why it's important to begin the process before your return. There's actually a section on the government's website. So it's the Department of Education, gov.ie. And on there's a section where you can actually search for schools in the areas that you intend to return to. So it'll have a list of schools, the contacts, principals' names, all that kind of stuff. So good resource to go to if you do need to find a school for your children, because it can be difficult, and obviously it gets a little harder in the middle of terms and things like that. So always best to start that process as early as possible. There are some supports that you can actually avail of through the social welfare to assist with the cost of school. Things such as the back to school footwear and clothing allowance, which you can find more information on citizensinformation.ie. And then another thing that actually does come up, and I know, Paul, we had a chat about it just before we came on here, is the exemption from Irish. So in primary and secondary school in Ireland, students they have to do Irish. It's basically it is up to Leaving Cert level is a mandatory subject. Now obviously if you're living abroad for many years and your kids are in their teens now and they've never actually had any experience of Irish, taking that up for Leaving Cert can be quite difficult. You can do it, but you can also in some circumstances apply for an exemption. So there is a criteria that you would have to meet in terms of their educational circumstances. There's an online form that you can get. So if you look up Irish exemption schools on Google, it'll come up like one first or second result. And there is an online application form that you can print out, fill it in, and you actually submit that then to the school that your children are attending. It is actually the school management who hold the authority to grant an exemption. If you're not happy with the results of that, there are processes that you can appeal that. But there are government circulars that are also available online if you wanted to read through them, that kind of set out the general criteria of what it would take to get an exemption in that case. Healthcare, as we said, there are the GP visit cards for children under 8. So this gives them free GP care. It doesn't cover hospital or medication charges, but you can apply for that on the HSE's website. Childcare, another big thing, obviously concern for parents coming home. So childcare is something which many parents might have concerns around the availability and cost in Ireland, but we would always recommend to research and consider the best childcare options based on you and your family's needs. So just keep in mind that available childcare services and costs in Ireland can vary by location. So obviously in major cities like Dublin, Cork, Galway, Limerick, And there's loads of childcare options. Same with schools as well. You know, it gets a bit more limited as you know, you get out into more rural areas, but the childcare cost as well can vary a lot depending on location. And there are some supports you can actually avail of when it comes to childcare in Ireland. So this includes the National Childcare Scheme, which provides financial support towards early learning and childcare costs. And then if you do have children who are of preschool age, there's also the Early Childhood Care and Education Scheme. And there is more information on these on our own website, and we can signpost as well through that website onto other information sources as well. That'll give you a deeper look into those schemes. So other supports as well, we've obviously mentioned child benefit, universal payment for all parents in Ireland. So obviously do make an application for this if you believe you meet the criteria. And then there are other family income supports as well that are available through the social welfare system in Ireland. So we have the work and family payment. This is usually, I think it's, you can work up to 38 hours, I think, in a 2-week period. So combined, so obviously 19 hours a week or however that breaks up. So that subsidizes working parents. There's other supporting payments such as obviously maternity benefit, and we also have the one-parent family payment for single-parent families. You can find more information about these on our website as well, and then Citizens Information also have good information on that as well. So again, we have the link up there, if you'd like to access any more information on that. So I think that's pretty much it, and I hope we've held all your attention. I know it's a lot of information to take in,